I can start with the introduction, if you allow me.
Sure.
So, hello everyone,
Yes, of course.
hello, and thanks a lot for joining today and making like a bit of your free time to actually join us and be interested in this topic that we have today. My name is Andrei, aka Void.admin, and today and this nice session we'll talk about saying yes in the right way. This is like a nice wording of saying how much you can avoid complexity traps in your Jira environment. So we'll be discussing today with our guest speaker Matthijs from Jellyfish, which was nice to accept this invitation. So thank you so much, Matthijs, for being the speaker for today. And yeah, I guess we can start. But before starting, I just want you to picture. I don't know if some of you guys like memes, but actually, like you can picture it, the meme of the guy that is like actually trying to, it's going on a bike and it has a stick, and to just put a stick on his bike and then he falls down, right? Everybody knows that meme. So
Yes.
maybe before going into this session, you will understand that what you actually need to do in order not to be that guy that falls off from the bicycle because they put a stick between the wheel,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, that's that. Thank you
And
a lot, Matthijs, for being here, and you have the mic.
thank you for having me, Andre. It's a pleasure to be here and speak with your community. Um, so
Oh,
yeah, as
cool.
as a Dutch person and somebody who's ridden a lot of bikes in his life, that meme really is very, very real. I've also been that person to stick into my own front wheel while trying to improve my Jira or thinking I was doing something well. So one of my favorite saying is a a smart man learns from his mistakes. A wise man learns from the mistakes of others. So hopefully, some of the mistakes I've made throughout my working with Jira will help you. So welcome to everybody, and thank you for joining today's session. Saying yes the right way, avoiding Jira complexity traps. If you ever said the words, sure, we can do that in Jira, and then 6 months later found yourself untangling a maze of workflows, custom fields, and automations that seem to run themselves, congratulations. You are definitely in the right place today. And if you've never done that, you might be lying to yourself. So, my name is Matthijs van Leeuwen, and I'm a strategic consultant and platform nerd whose long love hate relationship with Jira started around 2005. I'm currently working for a company called Jellyfish, which is a software engineering intelligence platform that processes signals from work trackers like Jira and coding information from Git to determine where engineering effort is going. But prior to that, I've worked for Atlassian and their largest platinum partner. I've been a Jira admin, a team lead, and a solutions engineer, helping companies make sense of and optimize their setups. And along the way, I've realized something simple but painful. Most Jira messes start with good intentions. We say yes because we want to help a team move faster, make stakeholders happy, or prove we're flexible. But every yes adds one more layer of configuration. And one day we wake up realizing our Jira instance is a museum of half baked ideas. That's what we're here to fix today. Not by saying no more often, but by learning to say yes the right way. So, this session is all about how to recognize when your helpfulness could be creating complexity, simplify Jira without slowing your teams down, and adopt a mindset that keeps Jira powerful and sustainable. We'll look at some real world examples, share a few horror stories. I won't name any names, I promise. And we'll end with some practical tips that you can take back to your own instance. For today, I would like to start with a quick poll. There will be 3 polls. You'll need your cell phone or need to go to a website for this. I would recommend just grabbing your phone, scanning the QR code, and answering the question. So let us know if, on a scale of 1 to 5, where is your Jira pain today? Is it Jira's pure joy for a 1, or 5? You're actively considering migrating your entire company to Trello. I'm really curious where everybody's at. And this should be pretty straightforward. Should be a scan. You don't need to register or anything, and then you can just pick a value. Oh, there's the first vote. Some issues, but generally things are painless. I lose sleep over Jira issues. I have definitely lost sleep over Jira issues. Let's see. I have a Jira headache once a month, been there too. All right, we got 3 votes in. Is anybody still waiting to vote? Otherwise, we'll move on. The poll will be open, so you can still vote, even if we move on, if you want to share where you're at a later stage. All right. So a tie for okay with some problems, losing sleep, and some headaches. Very real. The truth is, Jira's power is its biggest trap. It's endlessly configurable. You can make it do almost anything, which means people will make it do almost anything. When I was working as a solutions engineer, I used to always joke that I could get Jira to make coffee with the right setup, and I'm still convinced you can. You get team managed projects, custom issue types, which now should call work types. I'm sure everybody was really a big fan of the transition from issues to work types. Fields for everything from dietary restrictions to sprint mood scores. And before you know it, nobody remembers which data actually matters. The problem isn't Jira itself. The problem is when we say yes too quickly without thinking about how that yes affects everyone else. All right, time for a little therapy. Let's talk about the decisions that turn a good Jira into a haunted house of custom fields and broken automations. This is the part of the talk where we all get to admit the messy truth. Jira is never awful on day one. It becomes awful over time, one well-intentioned request at a time. It's that moment when someone asks, hey, could we just add one more status? And you think, sure, how bad could it be? 6 months later, that innocent status is part of 15 different workflows. Nobody remembers what it means, and your burned down charts look like spaghetti code. So let's start. First up, the customizer's curse. This is when every team, department, or product manager gets their own workflow, their own fields, their own definition of done. The admin wants to be helpful, so they say yes. And before long, you've got 42 projects, 38 unique workflows, and a growing suspicion that your Jira instance is developing sentience. The irony here, each of those teams thought they were optimizing, but in reality, they were isolating. Every deviation costs you consistency, which means reports break, dashboards lie, and automation becomes impossible to maintain. The next one is field frenzy. This is the point where every stakeholder wants to track their special thing. Marketing wants a field for campaign ID. QA wants a checkbox for reproduced in prod. Legal wants a dropdown for compliance category. And before you know it, your create issue screen requires scrolling. I'm not saying to stop creating custom fields. Just ask what will be done with the data. What outcome are we trying to achieve? What are we driving here with this information? I learned that from one of my mentors when we were preparing a proposal to work with an MBA team on their data analysis. The rule of thumb I use, if your developers need a scroll bar to file a bug, there's too much on the screen. Anti-pattern number 3 is workflow creep. It starts with something simple like to do in progress done, but then somebody says we should add in QA. Then another says, can we have blocked? Then ready for UAT, waiting for legal, waiting till pigs fly. You get the idea. The result? Half of your tickets are stuck in states nobody understands. Automation rules start firing in mysterious ways, and your devs are too scared to move an issue because they're not sure what happens next. All right, next up, the DIY hierarchy. I'm thinking most people have come across one of these. This is where the team builds their own pseudo hierarchy using issue links instead of using parental links. On paper, it looks clever. We'll just link everything together with is related to, and it'll be fine. Except it's never fine. You end up with circular links, orphan stories, and dashboards that can't tell which issues roll up where. I worked with an enterprise customer where we created a script to crawl their hierarchy without including the circular links, and we had a lot of circular links. We found issues that from the top layer to the bottom layer were 25 layers deep. If your Jira diagram looks like a family tree drawn by a conspiracy theorist, that is Jira. That's the DIY hierarchy at work. And here's a newer one that only came up in the last few years, automation overload. Now, I remember the amount of customers whose server and data center environments went down because somebody built a script runner script that was pulling a little bit too much resources from the environment and crashed the entire environment as such. We don't have that problem with Jira automation, but you can still go to automation overload. We love automation because it's powerful and saves time, and it tends to make Jira smarter, but it's very easy to go too far. I've seen instances where an issue transitions itself 3 times before anyone even touches it. Rules fire other rules, emails go out, tickets reopen themselves. It's like a haunted mansion of automations. So the motto here is, just because you can automate it doesn't mean you should. When in doubt, remember, good automation reduces human work. Bad automation just hides bad process. All right, poll number 2. Which trap have you fallen into? From my understanding, just to get an idea of where people are. Too many custom workflows, too many custom fields, too many automations, the DIY hierarchy, or none of the above. Curious where folks are. The QR code is there. If you didn't vote in the first one, you can still join and vote here. Too many custom fields. Yeah, that's always a good one. Too many workflows, too many custom fields. I definitely think that the too many custom fields is the most common. It's something that, especially as a solutions engineer, I came across a lot. People with thousands and thousands of fields. I think the max that I've seen so far was around 18,000 custom fields in one Jira environment. All right, so too many custom workflows actually going to the lead. All right, interesting. Nice. All right, the point here.
We got a +1 for too many custom fields from Steven. He's on the phone and he cannot. He cannot.
Thanks, Steven. Okay, so we got it perfect. We got a tie. Too many custom workflows and too many custom fields tied for first place. Wonderful. The point here isn't to shame anyone. These are all normal paths of evolution for Jira instances. Complexity sneaks in because we're trying to help. We're trying to say yes. The real skill is learning to recognize when another yes might be too expensive to maintain. So now that we've had our therapy session and identified our bad habits, let's talk about how to start digging out, or even better, how to stop digging before it begins. All right, so let's look at how to spot early signs of Jira complexity debt and what we can do to recover before things spiral out of control. So this is where we have spotted our bad habits, and we can now talk about what happens when those bad habits catch up with us. I call this stage Jira bankruptcy. The moment where your Jira instance is so overloaded with fields, workflows, and automations that nobody trusts it anymore. Tickets stop getting updated, reports are wrong, people start using spreadsheets again. That's when you know you're in trouble. Jira bankruptcy doesn't mean your instance is dead. It means your process debt has finally come due. Time to pay. And I've seen it in so many forms. You open the workflow editor and it takes longer than your morning coffee to render. When the create issue screen looks more like a tax form. When managers pull reports that nobody can reproduce because the filters include every synonym for tech debt known to humankind. And of course, my personal favorite, when the only person who understands how the things link together is the admin who quit 2 years ago. It's funny, but it's also the exact moment where teams lose faith in Jira as a single source of truth. So here's the thing. Jira complexity behaves just like financial debt. At first, it's small and easy to justify. Clean it later. We'll create one more workflow for this special team. Each change on its own seems harmless, but those changes accumulate interest over time. This shows up in the form of extra clicks, slower onboarding, broken reports, and admin confusion. If your admins are confused about what configuration is driving certain things in your environment, that's a sign that it's time for some cleanup. Eventually, these interest payments, the time you spend maintaining instead of improving the system, exceed the value you get from Jira. So people always ask, how do I measure that? Here's a simple ratio that I like to start with. The ratio of projects to workflows. It's very simple. If that ratio is close to 1-to-1, that's an indication for me that you have an issue. It would be the first question I would ask a customer when they would come to me as a solutions engineer and have to understand how bad is your environment, right? It was a huge red flag if it was a 1-to-1, or even worse, a 2-to-1, where you have more workflow, sorry, a 1-to-2 in this case, where you have more workflows than you have projects, right? It usually means every team has their own workflow or multiple workflows, which defeats the purpose of shared process. For me, a healthy setup might look like 10-to-1 or even 50-to-1. As many development teams that are using the same process, using the same workflow. The higher that number, the more you're reusing and standardizing, which is exactly what you need to do to scale. And to be honest, you can extend that same logic to fields and screens too. If you can't explain why each one exists, it probably shouldn't. So why do we let this happen? Because complexity hides behind good intentions. Nobody ever says, let's make Jira worse, right? We'll fix it later. That team's special, they need it. We'll just make a copy so we don't break anything. If you don't clean up after that, you are making things worse. Those decisions make sense in isolation, but they create invisible debt that compounds over time. The good news, like financial debt, you can recover, but you have to stop borrowing. All right. So you know you're headed toward Jira bankruptcy when you have multiple fields that mean the same thing. Date started in one project, start date in all of the others. Someone says, we can't delete that workflow. It's used by one project we don't talk about anymore. And of course, my favorite, every admin has their own sandbox instance because the real one is too scary to touch. If that sounds familiar, it's time to declare a little structured bankruptcy and come up with a cleanup plan. Recovery begins with acknowledgement. Admit that the system is confusing, then take small surgical steps. First step, audit your instance. List every workflow field and screen. Tag each of these items as essential, useful, or legacy. Start by deleting or merging the legacy stuff. You can run JQL queries against specific fields, like using things like updated is larger or equal to start of the year -4. That would give you things that have been updated in the last 4 years. Then say, add the custom field and say is not empty. Then you can say, has this field gotten any value changes in the last 4 years? If not, it's probably a legacy field, right? One important, crucial step though is communicate early and often with the teams. If fields just start disappearing off their screens, they're going to panic. They're going to say things are broken. So make sure to communicate. Think of this process as like refinancing your debt, going to a different lender. Same product, but with less chaos, right? You'll be amazed how much faster Jira feels when half of the unnecessary configuration is gone. That's Jira bankruptcy. Let's talk about how to avoid getting back into debt in the first place. In the next part of our section, we'll cover practical steps to escape complexity and build something that actually scales without saying no to everything. Give me 1 second. There. Are you still seeing my screen? Everything seemed to have disappeared for me.
Yeah,
There we go.
disappeared.
It's still good?
No.
Okay, the share screen stopped. That's what happened. I was like,
Yeah,
wait,
it stopped like out of nowhere.
Sorry
I
about
thought
that,
you
folks.
stopped it.
Nope.
Okay, yeah, it's back now. All good.
Back. Perfect. What is a good demo without a technical issue, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. All right, so we've hit rock bottom. We've admitted we're carrying some Jira debt. The workflows are tangled, the fields are breeding, and the reports don't make sense. Now the question is, how do we get out? Because if you've ever tried to fix a Jira mess, you know, cleaning up is a lot harder than creating the mess in the first place. Escaping complexity isn't necessarily about hitting reset. It's about being intentional and choosing where to simplify, where to standardize, and where to let the flexibility live. There are three main ways I've seen teams escape Jira chaos. The first one, the Big Bang rebuild. You archive the old instance and start fresh. The second, the gradual cleanup. You fix things in place piece by piece. And last, the parallel prototype. You build a clean proof of concept project, and slowly migrate others to it. Each of these has its pros and cons. The Big Bang feels really satisfying, but it's expensive and very risky. I've worked with quite a few companies that did something like this and didn't realize for a while that some of their crucial data was missing. I was then brought in to see what could be salvaged or rescued from the data, which is extremely hard. It's a lot easier if you realize it at the migration or at the transition versus 3 months later. Now people have started working in the new way, and now you got to mesh these things together, which is very complicated. The gradual cleanup takes time, but earns trust. And then the parallel prototype is great for experimentation, but you need very, very clear migration rules. For most Jira environments, the sweet spot is somewhere between option 2 and 3, a controlled cleanup with visible wins along the way. One thing I like to do when working with customers to optimize their Jira environment is actually create a project. That golden master will be the template and will serve to design the optimal project configuration. Once the configuration is done, this project is secured so only admins have access and no one creates tickets in it. Then, any new project will be created using the shared configuration option where it's linked to this golden master. That way, all projects have a common configuration. If crucial, certain options can be customized per project, but be careful not to head back into complexity. Just remember, consistency first, flexibility second. The first step to escaping complexity is making it visible, because you can't fix what you cannot see. Run an audit. Look at how many projects do you have? How many workflows do we have? Which fields are used in more than one project? Which automation rules fire most often? If you can't easily answer those questions, that's your first project right there. Put the findings in a single dashboard, not to shame anyone, but to create shared visibility. When people see the sprawl, they will be more likely to support your simplifications. Now, when I say dashboard here, I'm not talking about an Atlassian dashboard, and I'm talking about a Jira dashboard. Put it on a slide. These are the things that we have. That way you can create the next slide 3 months down and say, this is where we are today. And you can actually show that progression. The next big move is to align on language. Every team thinks they know what epic, story, and task mean until you try to compare data across projects. One team's epic is another team's feature, and someone somewhere renamed theirs to initiative because it sounded cooler. Before you touch workflows or automations, get everyone to agree on what words mean. This is the most boring step, but it's also the most important. If people use the same word for different things, your reports will always lie. Once language is standardized, the next goal is to reduce the number of workflows. Most teams can thrive on a few core patterns: a standard delivery workflow for software, a lightweight ops workflow for reactive work, and a simple Kanban workflow for ongoing tasks. Anything beyond that should prove its worth. Ask the question, what value does this extra status provide? If the answer is none, but it makes us feel better, get rid of it. Automation. Automation is very powerful, but this is where restraint pays off. Before you build a rule, ask, does this save someone time? Is it easier to maintain than to do manually? Will it bring less confusion downstream? If you can't answer yes to at least 2 of those, don't automate it. And whatever you automate, document it. I know we all love documentation, but it is crucial because your future you will forget how the automation works. Think of automation like salt. Adding a little bit of salt to your steak is really nice, but if you pour a bucket of salt on it, it will ruin your food. As you simplify, celebrate your progress. Maybe you retired 12 unused fields. Maybe your bug workflow went from 14 steps to 5. Call that out. Show it to your stakeholders. You're not just cleaning Jira, you're creating operational clarity. Small wins create momentum, and momentum is what keeps complexity from creeping back in. So we've escaped the worst of the chaos. Next up, let's talk about the fun part, the practical everyday Jira habits that keep your system healthy, the small yeses that actually move you forward instead of digging the hole deeper. All right, so we've faced our Jira debt and we've started cleaning up. Now let's talk about what keeps it clean. These are 7 practical habits that help you say yes without adding chaos. Think of them as complexity repellents, small things that prevent you from ever having to declare Jira bankruptcy again. Number 1, built-in hierarchy first. Jira gives you a solid 3-level hierarchy right out of the box: epic, story, and task, and then the subtasks. Most chaos begins when people try to invent extra layers: initiatives, themes, programs. Next thing you know, you're 3 hierarchies deep and nobody knows what rolls up to what. Don't get me wrong, I'm a certified skilled agile consultant and know that in certain organizations, 4 levels above the epic are needed because there are so many teams and pieces of their delivery that need to join together at the right time that it would be impossible to track effectively without these additional hierarchy levels. But if you need higher levels of hierarchy, upgrade to Jira Software Premium or use a plugin like Structure or Big Picture to make those hierarchies clearly visible. Remember, links are relationships, not structure. If your team starts mapping parent-child relationships with relates to links, you've built a spaghetti org chart. If you must have a custom field, and let's face it, sometimes you must, put it at the top of your hierarchy. Tag it on the epic, not on the subtask. That way you only fill it in once and every child issue inherits context. Atlassian has been making progress with field inheritance, so design for that direction. A small shift like that can cut admin time significantly. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that for most custom fields, this is done through automation. So make sure you have enough automation credits to actually run this in your instance. If I recall correctly, only the team field is the one that does inheritance now automatically without automation being needed. All right. This one, I'm surprised I still have to talk about this, but let your developers create their own tasks and subtasks. Like if you're I'm really happy when an engineer creates a ticket because most of the times engineers just want to write code. So if they go to your system to actually log a bug or log a story or an idea that they had, make it easy for them to do so. Jira works best when it reflects reality, and engineers are the ones creating that reality. So if they have to jump through hurdles to log a ticket, it's not going to be long before they just stop logging tickets. Set up your permissions so they can work within a controlled structure. Otherwise, you'll end up with shadow trackers in Notion, Trello, or even worse, sticky notes. One of the biggest productivity wins you can give your teams: enforce a Jira key in every branch name and commit message. That one simple rule unlocks automation and traceability. A branch opens, a ticket moves to in progress. A PR merges, ticket closes automatically. Need to debug something? Git blame will tell you exactly which ticket and what line of code caused this problem that you're trying to debug. It's the gift of context. Past you explaining decisions to future you. Automate for hygiene. Automation is a blessing until it starts running your life. Use it to handle the boring stuff. Close stale tickets after X amount of days. Move issues when the PR merges, like we just saw. Assign components automatically, but don't use it to enforce human judgment, like blocking transitions until 3 checkboxes are ticked. That's not automation. That's bureaucracy in JSON. Rule of thumb: automation should Automation should make Jira feel lighter, not feel bossier. Whew. Then a very dangerous topic, team managed projects. It's like giving every team their own sandbox. They're perfect for small squads or experiments, but they're completely useless if you need to do any type of scaling. For me, personally, the new functionality in the team managed projects is not enough benefit over the drawbacks. Each team managed project is an instant silo or wall between other teams. They can also significantly increase the admin overhead. So generally with the customers that I work with, I recommend staying away from team managed projects. Think of it like this. Team managed equals total freedom for a team. Company managed equals governance. Both of those matter, but choose intentionally. Well, last but not least, dashboard detox. Here's one that most admins forget is the dashboards. If your dashboards look like an air traffic control panel, it's too much. More dashboards don't equal more insight. Create one executive view for your leadership team, one team view for daily use that is equal across teams and uses dynamic parameters to actually filter which team is looking at what. Archive anything that isn't actively being used. And remember, a chart that nobody acts on is just decorative data. And I can definitely say I am very guilty of way too many dashboards. I think I have like 4 just to look at one project. So, all right, let's recap our 7 habits for saying yes the right way. Number 1, use the built-in hierarchy. Number 2, put custom fields at the top. Number 3, empower your developers to create their own issues. Work items. Sorry, I'm really trying. Change to work items. Link your code and your tickets together. Automate for hygiene. 6 is use team managed projects strategically, or my preferred approach for that is don't use them at all. And 7, detox your dashboards. If you do just half of these consistently, your Jira instance will feel half the size but twice as useful. All right, we've covered the habits that keep Jira tidy. Now let's zoom out and talk about the people behind those habits, specifically why these changes make life better for engineers and admins alike. Because if we can show why it's worth doing, we can finally stop fighting Jira and start trusting it. So far, we've talked a lot about the how to avoid complexity, how to simplify workflows, how to automate with restraint. Now I want to talk about the why, because let's be honest, Jira cleanup is not glamorous. You don't get a trophy for deleting a custom field, and nobody throws you a party when you finally standardize your workflows. But the payoff is real, and it's not just about Jira running smoother. It's about people being able to do their jobs without friction. A cleaner Jira helps both your engineers doing the work and the admins managing the system. So let's start with the engineers, the people living inside Jira every day. When Jira is clean and consistent, they spend less time clicking and more time coding. They can trust that their tickets actually reflect reality. They don't have to ask, wait, which field do I fill in again? Automation becomes their friend instead of their enemy. Tickets update automatically when PRs open and merge. The issue status actually matches what's happening in Git. And maybe most importantly, engineers stop treating Jira as a chore and start seeing it as a helpful and useful part of their workflow. When you hear a developer say, yeah, Jira is fine, that's basically the highest compliment you'll ever get as an admin. Now let's talk about you, the admins, because this is the hidden truth. A clean Jira doesn't just make the tool better, it makes your life better. When your workflows are standardized, you spend less time debugging other people's configurations. You handle fewer support requests like, why isn't my status changing? And you can actually use reports with confidence instead of explaining why 2 dashboards show different numbers. Standardization also gives you more political power. Seriously. When you can show clear metrics like cycle time, issue aging, or throughput across different projects, You're not just a Jira admin. You're the person who makes visibility possible. You're enabling better decisions, faster delivery, and cleaner process conversations. That's a big shift from the person who manages Jira to the person who helps teams work smarter. And here's the magic part. What's good for admins is also good for engineers. When data is reliable, leaders stop asking for manual status reports. Teams stop arguing about what is real. And Jira becomes a shared source of truth, not a shared pain point. That's the tipping point where people stop saying, we have to use Jira, and start saying, we get to use Jira. Okay, maybe they won't say that out loud, but at least they'll stop complaining in Slack, which is basically the same thing. So, quick story. I once worked with a team that had over 90 workflows. Every project had its own special process. And after a 6-week cleanup, they got it down to 18 shared workflows. What happened next was really wild. Reports that used to take hours to run started working instantly. Engineers that didn't have to ask which status to use. And the admin who had been thinking about leaving said, I can breathe again. That's what this is all about. You're not just fixing a tool, you're fixing the environment people work in. So, we've talked about why simplicity pays off. Next, we'll zoom in one last time to look at a healthy, ideal Jira workflow and what that actually looks like. How to make your statuses, resolutions, and transitions tell a clear story that everyone can follow. So we've cleaned up Jira, simplified our fields, made peace with automation. Let's look at the glue that holds it all together, your workflows. Because workflows are the heartbeat of Jira. They tell everyone where work is, who owns it, and what happens next. When workflows are healthy, Jira feels invisible. When they're not, you feel it instantly. An ideal workflow is simple, logical, and meaningful. It doesn't need 20 statuses. It just needs enough to describe reality without forcing people to lie to Jira. Think of it like this. If your workflow makes people ask, which status should I use? You've already lost. Here's the checklist I use for any type of workflow redesign. Every status has a clear purpose. Transitions are predictable, and you minimize dead ends. And the colors make sense. Gray is to do, blue is in progress, green equals done. One mistake I see very, very, very often is people using the blue status category for things that are part of a hold, right? Blocked being blue. Well, it's in development. It went through the first part of development. Now we're just waiting for QA, but it's blue. Make these things gray. It's a to-do status. Nobody's actively working on it when it's blocked. Nobody's actively working on it when it's on hold or waiting for QA. Another common mistake I still see a lot is the mixing up of statuses and resolutions. Status tells you where the issue is. Resolution tells you what happened when it was moved to complete or done. So when something moves to done, make sure it gets a resolution, like fix or won't fix or duplicate. That's how you can actually report why things were closed. My personal favorite way of doing this is what I learned from Atlassian. Bring up that pop-up and let people choose. I make my engineers choose why they are closing a ticket. I don't create a status that says won't do. That's part of the resolution. It sounds small, but this is the difference between accurate metrics and dashboard hallucinations. Another key to clean data, one clear SNE at any point in time. If you ever feel the need to make a multi-assignee a thing, go for a walk. Get some fresh air, come back and think about it again. You can still tag collaborators in comments or watchers. Apps like Jellyfish even support things like pair programming and extreme programming, but we don't do that using the assignee field. We don't make multiple assignees. We have a secondary field where we track the pair programming or the extreme programming. Every issue needs one accountable human. Otherwise, nobody moves it because everyone is thinking somebody else will do it. Here are a few signs your workflow might need an intervention. Status is like ready for review 2 or blocked, kind of. Transition conditions so strict that tickets get stuck in limbo. Separate workflows for bugs and stories and tasks that are 95% the same. Statuses that only exist for Jira automation to trigger something else. If any of these things sound familiar, it's time for a tune-up. So now let's talk about hygiene, because even the best workflow won't save you if your data is dirty. Healthy Jira hygiene means closing issues properly. Don't leave zombie tickets out there or work items. Using consistent naming for labels and components. Retiring old custom fields instead of hiding them. If the data within them isn't being used for historical reporting, why are you keeping them around? Checking for stale epics or open sprints that never end. And one of my favorites, giving long-running epics a time box. A lot of customers over the years have created environments where teams link their work to what I call bucket epics or long-running epics. Nobody has any benefit of an epic that's been around for 3 years and has 17,000 tickets in it. Make them quarterly. You can do that through automation. You can automatically close a ticket at the end of a quarter, an epic at the end of a quarter, and open a new one with the same parameters but a different timestamp. That will actually make your reporting so much easier. If you're doing this now, think about this, because if I have an epic that a team links all of their maintenance work to, or all of their bugs, at the end of that quarter, if I get asked how many bugs did we have this quarter, did we address, I could just look at the one epic and tell you we have 30 bugs in this epic that the team fixed. That's what we did this past quarter. Same with things like maintenance. How many maintenance events did we have? How much effort did we put into these things? Those are the type of things that you can unlock when you start thinking about these things in a more structured fashion. Also important, schedule regular audits. And I'm looking, I'm getting close to time, am I not? Yes. I'll move a bit faster, Andre.
Yeah, no problem, no
Schedule
problem.
schedule regular audits, monthly or quarterly, and clean as you go. I like starting with monthly audits because then you can start spotting things early. It's a lot easier to clean up a month of a mess than 3 months of a mess. Think of it like brushing your Jira's teeth. Skip it for too long and you'll need a root canal later. Automate for hygiene. You can use automation to keep things tidy, but remember, hygiene is not micromanagement, or it shouldn't be. Good examples, auto close an issue after 60 days of inactivity. Ping an owner when tickets haven't been updated in 2 weeks. Flag epics with no active stories, or close epics when all stories within it have been completed. These gentle nudges keep your data fresh without annoying your users. All right, the virtuous cycle. When workflows and data hygiene work together, everything clicks. Reports are accurate, dashboard actually means something, automation works consistently, and everyone stops creating shadow spreadsheets. That's when Jira stops feeling like an obligation and starts feeling like part of the infrastructure. So now that we've built a clean and reliable Jira, what keeps it that way? The last section for today is around culture, the human part of the system. Because all the cleanup in the world won't matter if your teams don't share common language and respect for the process. So we built cleaner workflows, standardized fields, and improved data hygiene. Now comes the hardest and most important part, keeping it that way. Because here's the truth. Jira doesn't stay healthy through automation or admin magic. It stays healthy through culture. And just like it does with your strategy, culture will eat your configuration for breakfast. Culture is just the sum of everyone's small choices, every field they fill out, every workflow they follow, every shortcut they do not take. I like to say your Jira is a mirror of your company. If your Jira is chaotic, there's probably some chaos in your process. If it's over controlled, there's probably too much process within your organization. If it's balanced, collaborative, and transparent, congratulations. That's a culture thing, not a configuration thing. Jira doesn't create dysfunction. It just makes it visible. So improving Jira means improving how people communicate. Half of Jira pain comes from misaligned language. That's why I started with get your language right across your teams. You've heard it before. One team says epic, another says feature, somebody else calls it a project initiative. They are all right and they're all wrong. So the first cultural fix is shared vocabulary. Have a short glossary in internal living visible document. I like putting it in Confluence as just a table. This is what the term is. This is what it means. This is how we use it in this organization. Don't overcomplicate it. Just define your new key terms and stick to them. Also, good advice, don't pick terms that are heavily used within the platform. I know organizations that created work types called project. That's really confusing when you're working in Jira and says, yeah, my Jira project, and you don't mean an actual project, you mean an issue type that has epics in it. Same, I've worked with organizations that called it releases. I even worked with an organization that created something called new epic. Now that was probably one of the worst, because nobody understood the difference between the old epic and the new epic, and they were used interchangeably when they meant something completely different. So creating that glossary is key. If your people are using the same words but mean different things, there's no automation will save you. Next cultural shift is making cleanup part of normal life, not a big annual event. Encourage everyone to flag confusing fields or broken workflows. Maybe create a Slack channel called Jira Spring Cleaning, where people can drop feedback. Give visibility to admins who fix things, even tiny things. When people see Jira as getting simpler, they trust it more. And that trust is what prevents the next wave of complexity. This talk is called Saying Yes the Right Way for a reason. Saying no is easy, but unpopular. Saying yes is generous, but risky. So the real art is saying yes slowly. When someone asks, can we add this field? You can say, maybe, let's test it first. What outcome are you trying to drive? What are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to track with this? When they say, can we have our own workflow? You can say, let's see if we can start with a shared one instead. That's how you stay helpful without creating new debt. All right, last poll for today. What's the first small thing you want to do after this session? All right, delete an unused workflow or field. Got one vote so far. Take a deep breath and plan first. I like that. Oh, yeah, 2 for the deep breath. Oh, 3 for the deep breath. I think people are gonna plan first. I like that. It's a good approach. All right. So you don't need executive sponsorship or a full-time cleanup squad. Start with one small project, simplify one workflow, retire one obsolete field, document one automation rule. That's all it takes to start momentum. And momentum is contagious. Over time, those small changes add up. Your instance becomes cleaner, reports make sense again, teams actually trust what they see. And one day you'll hear someone say, yeah, Jira's actually pretty good here. That's your victory moment. Because you didn't just fix Jira, you changed how your organization thinks about process. Thank you for spending the time with me today, especially since this was all virtual. If you take just one thing away, let it be this. Every yes in Jira is a design decision. Say yes the right way, and Jira will stay a tool that works for you, not against you. Thanks again for joining, and may all your workflows stay green. Let's see if we have any questions.
Thank you very much for the awesome presentation, Matthijs. Let me open the Q&A session to see if someone has any questions. You should have the Q&A panel. I think this is how it should work. If not, people can ask in the chat.
I'll stop the sharing so that we can get a full screen video. There we go.
Let's Let's see if someone has any questions. We have some thank yous, so
Always nice. It was a pleasure.
Okay, I don't know. No questions. Really good presentation. Thank you very much for the
Thank you.
feedback. Yeah. I don't know if you had any thoughts. I don't know if you have any questions, how you can move forward, or I don't know, something was unclear maybe. You can just ask, and pretty sure we'll have the answers.
I'm sure this is going to be just like when I work with customers. 5 minutes after the presentation ends, they have, oh yeah, that's what I should have asked.
Oh yeah.
Happens to me too.
Yeah, true. But until you are just thinking around what you can ask, just for your information, if you have any other friends or I don't know, someone that could join this presentation but he could not, I just want to inform you that this was a recorded session, so I will upload it on my YouTube channel for anyone else can watch it like offline and gather all this information that Matthijs presented. So if you want, you can share. You'll find it here on this YouTube channel afterwards. I think at the end of the day, I'll just upload it so you can find it there, so you can share it with your peers. So yeah, I hope this
Awesome.
was, yeah, no questions, Q&A, no? Then
Nothing coming through.
Yeah, the presentation was so good, like everybody's speechless.
That's good, man. That's good. I don't always get that.
So someone said, Christina, thank you for sharing the recording because I just joined. Yeah, no problem, no problem. You'll find it on the YouTube channel from the start to finish, so you can watch it later, no problem. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I guess everyone is happy without any questions. So
nice.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, Andre. This was fun.
No problem. Thank you for accepting the invitation. And I don't know, maybe in some day we'll see each other at the presentation in person in Cluj. So yeah, we shall see. Maybe
that'd be really cool. That'd be really cool.
For sure. Okay, thank you guys for joining today, for taking your time to be here with us. Thank you so much, and thank you, Matthijs, for accepting the presentation. And have a lovely day ahead.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Already started. Okay. See ya. Have a nice one. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.